What's up, everybody? It's Alex McCarthy's Wrestling Daily here once again for the Wednesday Night Delight episode. And of course, I am being flanked. Louis Dangoor out of the door. Scram! Amtray! Hit the bricks! It's SP3 straight here from True Hill Heat. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing? I feel like I'm with a legend right now, sir.
But yeah, just because I've actually exchanged words with The Undertaker.
You got the rub. You got the rub. He made you famous.
Yeah, I wish he did. I mean, I don't know, actually, do I? They didn't work out so well for some of those guys. No, man, that was amazing. Yeah, for those who don't know, I had the pleasure of speaking to The Undertaker on a conference call today ahead of his final appearance. I say with inverted commas because I doubt that it is, at Survivor Series in a few weeks. So that can't drop until the 20th. So that's a week Friday. That's embargoed until, but it was a great chat, man. I wish I'd had longer. It was only like a couple of questions, but we dug into some matches that he hasn't really spoken about in his career, namely the ladder match with Jeff Hardy. That is an absolute favorite of mine. And he gave me some really cool tidbits on it that I won't spoil. But it is awesome. So you can look forward to that, guys. Some cool stuff coming with Taker. He was in good form today. That brings us back to today. One thing that has been on absolute fire lately is the super chats. SB3 knows, he lurks in the comments. You guys coming in with the great hot takes and the opinions, and of course just chucking in some hot fire as and when you please. Any amount we will read out. That is awesome. Can't wait. So thank you for joining us. And of course, Quizzlemania goes down at 9 p.m. today. The 6 hack challenge, where the odds are stacked against Sean Ross Sapp with the Quizzlemania title. Let me tell you something. It reminds me, SB3, of when the odds were stacked against Kurt Angle in Hell in a Cell, and he retained.
He pulled it out. He pulled it out. I'm going for Queen of the Ring to get her crown back, the first ever female Quizzlemania champion. I sat next to her at All In Chicago, so she has the New Yorker on her side. New York, so we ride together.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, Tempest comes from behind the curtain, the fact-checking curtain, and is now in the hot seat. So good luck to good old Tempest, who of course is a regular on this show in the comments too. Of course, as I always like to mention, please share and subscribe to Wrestle2, and you can catch up with us on podcasts with Spotify, Apple, Acast, and all of the good, the bad, and the ugly SP3. So that brings us to our first bit of news today. As the title would suggest, it's a bit AEW heavy. What did we learn about AEW games last night, SP3?
Well, we learned that they're coming out with 3 video games. One is going to be for your current and next-gen consoles. It's going to be based off of the developer for WWF No Mercy, which is, in my opinion, the greatest wrestling video game of all time. Yes, the GOAT of them all. They're also going to come out with Elite General Manager, which I found hilarious that AEW beat WWE from bringing back the GM mode, which was my favorite mode from the SmackDown versus Raw series. That's going to be a mobile game. We also found out that they're going to have another app-type game it's called Casino Double or Nothing. And they're coming out with the first ever T-shirt with a head hole and 2 sleeves. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. I will say I really enjoyed the Steve Jobs parody by AEW. Some people were turned off by it, but I enjoyed it. That was the good part for me. The console game, I'm happy that it's in development because it needs some more development.
I will say Kenny Omega looked like his chest was like stitched together. But having said that, as a disclaimer said at the beginning of the thing, right, it is in the early stages of development. It's for next year. It's probably going to be on the next gen console. So you can imagine business will pick up and it will, be looking great. A shock that WWE have never brought back the GM despite Xavier Woods making a living out of it, basically. Crazy that they've managed to leave that by the wayside for a while. But in terms of the announcement, I think it's cool that that they're making these strides. They're not even 2 years old as a company. It's pretty amazing to think that. I thought Omega as Steve Jobs was actually he looked super comfortable. Did he not?
He really did. Like, he had the tone and everything, the walk around, the little pointing with the remote. He was just owning the whole thing. It went a little bit over the top with everybody coming out and doing it, but yeah, like Omega by himself was just owning in that Steve Jobs mode. But I'm really excited for what's to come, because Yux was my childhood. My favorite video games, like I said, was WWF No Mercy. Before that, WWF WrestleMania 2000. Before that, WCW NWO
Revenge.
The most underrated wrestling video game of all time. When you had AKI Man and everybody else in that was one of the best rosters ever. So I'm very excited for them to be teaming up with AEW.
Yeah, I loved NWO Revenge, like that and No Mercy in WrestleMania. That just reminds me of like when you're about to hit your finish and it's like you got to get going on the N64 pad. Yeah, man, that was crazy. I loved it back then. Listen, we got a comment here that I feel like I have to read out. Chris Duncan says, should maybe get SB3 on Quizzlemania. Now I know my guy has been campaigning for it, right?
I have been. Like, I've been on your talk show on Talk Wrestling, and I won the quiz there. I won the quiz with some of the hardest questions that I've heard when you asked me what's the dummy for the Legion of Doom from SummerSlam 1992, and I pulled out Rocco out of my behind. So you know, I'm pretty good at the quizzes. So call me, Adam. Call me.
If like the Talk Wrestling quiz is maybe the minor leagues, then you're ready for the call up, man. You're ready for the main go. We got a few super chats that have come into us early doors. We'll go with CM Chris first. Good friend of the show. How are you, brother? Love this. I always love the Street Fighter, Abby. AEW Games was hilarious. # Steve Omega. Also, can't wait to see what Dynamite is like tonight after what happened with Full Gear. Couldn't agree more, CM Chris. They've set themselves up for multiple directions. I'm super intrigued by Hangman and his direction, but also the way it's going to play out with MJF in the Inner Circle, I think, has got my attention the most. Those two stories for me are, they are what AEW have built to a really strong level, and I'm just really intrigued to see where they go. And also, Tony Khan is teasing a surprise SP3.
Yes, I got the tweet right here, and I quote from Tony Khan. He says, tonight we have a great lineup for AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For the rest of 2020, AEW will keep delivering great matches on Wednesday nights. Plus, there are massive surprises ahead. Please join us on TNT tonight. The balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight. I know we were talking about it before we went on camera, but it's a very Dixie Carter-like tweet.
And nobody wants to be Dixie Carter-esque, but there it is.
I'm looking forward to it. I think Tony has a pretty good track record. We've had big debuts on Dynamite's after pay-per-views. I think after All Out was when Miro debuted. After Double or Nothing this year, that was when FTR debuted in AEW. So they have a good track record for the AEW's after pay-per-views in 2020. So let's see what's in store for us tonight on Dynamite. I'm ready for Phoenix versus Pentagon for sure, though.
Yeah, man. Let's get that. I'm glad to hear that Phoenix is back so soon, because when you hear Nick, you always think, oh, but good to see that the guy's back and ready to have another hellacious match. But I will say for AEW, obviously, a lot of people are thinking Sting. Don't know about that. But there's a lot of different directions AEW can go in. And like I said, Tony Khan, I said this before we came on air, I feel like Tony Khan has been a good owner thus far, man. He's delivered. He's done well in his position. So we'll have to see what is going on with that one. CM Chris corrects me. Streets of Rage, not Street Fighter. Streets of Rage is a great game, by the way. You just picking up poles and stuff and you have to walk along just horizontally, battering people. It's great. I thought that was Ryu, no, from Street Fighter. Maybe I've even got that name wrong. You know where I'm coming from. They look alike. Come on.
Yeah, they are.
Come
Is
on
it
now.
right? I think they have the red bandana though. That's the difference.
There it is. Right, yeah. Because what was it like? Ken and Ryu? Were they like the
Yes,
two? They were like the two, weren't they? Who were like, yeah, okay.
the brothers. Yeah.
Enough from me on that, on my Sega nostalgia. So moving on to the next super chat. Benny boy, how you doing, my friend? First time watching this live. Welcome. Quizlemania pre-drinks. LOL. Hot take. I think Bianca Belair is overrated.
That's the second time during one of my Wrestling Daily episodes that this has been said.
They wait for you to come on. She's got potential, but not great currently, in my opinion. Benny boy, I mean, I think I've made it quite clear that I think there's a massive ceiling for Bianca Belair. Is she polished yet? No, you probably have a point to a degree on that one. She's obviously got to refine her in-ring skills and in terms of a story that's being told, she hasn't had many like long-term storylines to sink her teeth into yet, especially on the main roster, right? But and as far as raw talent, ability goes, and just like the superstar look, aura, and presence, she's got it. Has she not?
I totally agree with you. Like I think you can count them on one hand in the world how many females can pull out a 450. And she can. Her skill in the ring, she hasn't really been able to show it on the main roster. Like she's barely been on TV 2 weeks in a row on the main roster. So if you are just focusing on her main roster run since WrestleMania 36, I understand where you're coming from with saying like she has potential, but she isn't great currently because really she hasn't gotten the chance. But if you saw her in NXT and saw her grow from that first Mae Young Classic all the way until her call up, you know that she's improved so much and there's so much for her to improve on in the future.
Yeah, like to me, it's just super exciting, the idea of her and Sasha down the line and, other matchups like that. You speak to any women in WWE and they will tell you like Bianca Belair is the truth. Charlotte Flair has told it to me like 2 or 3 times that she really thinks that she's the future of the business. So a bit like we take Daniel Bryan's word, for solid gold, that I'm going to take Charlotte Flair's when it comes to potential in WWE. Moving along, we got a bit of news to jump into. I know that we kind of touched on AEW and what they've done with the gamings and whatnot. But WWE do have some news too. And Tribute to the Troops is returning, SP3.
Yes, I think did they have one last year? I think so, but I love the Tribute to the Troops. It's a nice, it's a nice event to kind of mix in between the major events like TLC and Royal Rumble. Comes usually at the end of the year. My favorites were like the early ones when they actually went to Afghanistan, and the first time John Cena gave Big Show the FU, I remember, was on that Tribute to the Troops, and then Stone Cold coming out and stunnering John Cena. The only interaction we ever got between those two was at a Tribute to the Troops. So there's been memorable moments at Tribute to the Troops. So I'm glad to see it come back this year.
I believe they've had 18 in a row. That's what they said in the press release anyway, 18th annual. So I'm assuming they haven't taken any breaks. Obviously, that was a JBL brainchild, if I'm led to believe. I think it was his idea to Vince McMahon, who obviously loved it. So, yeah, it's cool. It's going to be in the Thunderdome, and they're going to have some families in there. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a nice little thing for them to get going. Also with WWE, speaking of things that are returning, the Bellas, apparently, Nikki and Brie Bella are, they are wanting a return to WWE because they want to get into the women's tag title picture. They were talking about this on some kind of, you'll know better than I, SP3, some kind of talk show in America. Mario Lopez was there. I know that much, right? AC Slater himself was talking to the Bellas. And I believe it was Brie who said they really wanted to make the comeback.
Yes, they want to make a run for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, which I like that. If that's what they're coming back for, that's like one of the names that when the WWE Women's Tag Team titles were first created, I was like, man, this is the one team that I wish was around right now, because it's like they waited years for this to be brought in. Like, they could have done so much with the Bella Twins as women's tag team champions years ago when they were in their prime. But it would be fun for them to come back now. I mean, WWE hasn't done the best job in creating women's tag teams lately, especially with breaking up the Golden Role Models, Kairi Sane going back to Japan, which broke up the Kabuki Warriors. But Shayna and Nia have done a pretty good job as the Team Hell No of the women's division, as the feuding partners. So I think that would be kind of a cool matchup with the Bella Twins. I'm always in the middle though with the Bella Twins. I'm a huge Nikki Bella fan. I think Nikki Bella is one of the most underrated female heels of the last decade in WWE. But Brie Bella, I saw her after, her first pregnancy, and, God bless her being a mother, accomplishing so much out of the ring. But her return the last time did not leave me with a good impression to be all gun-ho about another return for her.
Yeah, when it comes to the Bellas, so I'm on the same thing, and I've been scolded on Twitter for saying as much, but I think Nikki Bella was terribly underappreciated for her run as champion. She grew exponentially as the champion while she had it. She got so much better. Unfortunately, like you said, their last run, mostly because of Brie, in ring work was horrible. The suicide dives, she had 2 or 3 of them that were botched and really dangerous. The kick to Liv Morgan, none of us have forgotten. So it's like, yes, the idea of the Bellas coming back, and it's cool to me. But you want the work to be there too. You know what I mean? And I think as long as the balance is there and everything's done well, cool. No, I'm up for it. I'll be happy to see them return, but I don't think we can just sweep under the rug the performances last time around, because they just weren't good enough. So let's hope that they could come back though and wash that memory away. I'd love nothing more than for them to come back and prove us all wrong there. Let's take some more super chats here. The hot takes come flying in.
Yeah, bring them in.
Bring them in. Tyler Woodward, another good friend of the show, with Finn Balor abs, nonetheless. Hot take: I think Gable has a ceiling, and that ceiling is a mid-card title run. Would love him as a world champ, but you know what WWE is like, 3-week push. You see, I'm paraphrasing here because there is grammatical errors, Tyler, but I will forgive you because I appreciate you dropping that into us. It's hard to argue. I could see him as like a main eventer, wrestling and putting on great matches with people. Do I see him standing atop of the company? It's important to differentiate like what I see and like a talent level, and then what my mind is conditioned to see because I know what WWE like. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah. I call it put it on your Vince hat. Like, yeah. You see things, you see talent in a different light because, we're wrestling fans. We're both journalists. We could see it from that perspective, but we also we've been longtime WWE fans. We have to see things from Vince McMahon's eyes and how Vince McMahon sees him. He's short. He's small. He doesn't have the great mic skills. He's not Kurt Angle to him. So I think he has the talent to potentially, he can reach maybe a certain level of Kurt Angle's career, not the apex of Kurt Angle, but somewhere along those lines. But Vince McMahon, I don't seeing Chad Gable as that. I think this is an on point hot take of mid-card title run is his ceiling. I
think when you look at guys like Chad Gable, and often the way guys really get over is just great work. The fans gravitate to people that are amazing workers, and height doesn't really define that. And that's why people like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and many more have become undeniable per se. Like you said, Vince McMahon's lens, they're the only ones that matters, whether we like it or not. Like, even the people around him, really, it's only if Vince thinks that this person will make him money, does he really care to push them. Just history tells us, really, Chad Gable is maybe not his cup of tea. If he'd been literally 6 foot, doesn't even have to be, a foot taller, but let's just say he was 6 foot, it would make the world a difference. But, what is he, 5'7", something like that, around that mark? And don't get me wrong, the guy's in amazing shape, sure, but like, I don't know, I think to Vince, height matters. And there's plenty of times where I look at Vince and I think, how have you come to that conclusion? Or WWE, like, you know, I still look at Rusev Day and I don't quite know how they dropped the ball as bad as they did. Like I was at WrestleMania 34 and I can tell you personally, nobody was more over than Rusev Day. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like everywhere in the city, that's all people were chanting. The loudest pop in the arena, everything was for Rusev. And I still don't know how they fumbled it as bad as they did. Same thing with years prior. I always felt like the time was there for Cody Rhodes. They had like 2 or 3 different times where Cody could have gone up into the main event, where coming out of Legacy was one of them. I think he had another one when he should have won the Money in the Bank, but Sandow won it. And I think he was told 2 years in a row he was going to win it. Well, I know he was because he told me. And then he didn't. On the day, both days, they told him, no, we've changed it. Like, you can forgive him for maybe being a bit bitter sometimes. So WWE, at the end of the day, like you said, it's one man who thinks, you know, and what he thinks. And then I think I get it why sometimes people are like, you know, Vince is out of touch. You hear that one, right? And I still think the man's a genius and he's made the landscape that we see today. But you can understand sometimes they're like, you know, does a 75-year-old man know exactly, you know, this is the same guy that thought the New Day would be the biggest baby faces in the world, coming out as like church preaching positivity. Like that's
he doesn't have his pulse on the WWE fan of today. He is by far one of the biggest genius in business. I call him the GOAT businessman. When it comes to business moves outside the ring, in the ring, you know, he's not 100%, but XFL. But he does have a great track record when it comes to making business decisions, and one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling history. But as of right now, that's why he has people like Triple H by his side, Brian James, Bruce Pritchard, for better or worse, with Bruce, in my opinion. But, you know, he has people by his side to kind of have their finger on the pulse of the professional wrestling fan. But for him, I don't think he's there at 70-something years old. It's not there anymore.
Uptown Avondale says they waited too long to pull the trigger for Strowman too. I bring that comment up because I agree very much so. Coming out of the "I'm not done with you" feud with Roman, that should have been when Strowman was the champ. That was 2017, 18-ish. You know, they waited too long to give him his first run, in my opinion. You know, there was a time where he was just getting like the Austin treatment. Obviously not, but you know what I mean in terms of they had something for him every week on Raw where he was causing destruction, doing something cool and fun, and that's kind of just dissipated with time, unfortunately. So I think for all the flack that he gets, and I don't think he's helped himself with saying that he had a great run, but for all the flack that he gets, I do think Strowman did deserve it at one point, and the guy has put on great matches down the years with certain opponents. Hot take from Johnny Morocco. That's a great name. Hot take. The Flair Savage match at Mania 8 is the best match at any Mania until WrestleMania 17.
Wow.
Keep up the excellent work, guys. Johnny, we thank you, brother. That is a hot take, man. There's so much to dive into. I mean, first of all, I think I said this the other day. I do think WrestleMania 17 is the best Mania ever. And yes, you'd probably be right in thinking that either Austin Rock, although, you know, the finish leaves a lot to be desired, TLC and things of that nature definitely stole the show. There's so, you know, you've left like 16 WrestleManias. Like the first one that comes to mind, Owen and Brett is an amazing opener. Steamboat Savage is a classic.
Razor Shawn from that same Owen Brett.
Yeah, WrestleMania 10, right? Yeah, in Madison Square Garden. That's right. Like, you know, Austin and Brett. That's one of my. I say Shawn and Taker from WrestleMania 25 and Austin and Brett from 13 are the 2 greatest WrestleMania matches in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think that WrestleMania 8 overall is very underrated. For that match is probably like at the centerpiece. It's so that was the feud that made me a professional wrestling fan. I think I was like 3-4 years old at the time, and I hated Ric Flair for the original case of Photoshop, with photoshopping those pictures of him and Miss Elizabeth. How dare you, Rick?
How dare you? How dare you? I was such a big Macho Man fan. Macho Man made me a professional wrestling fan, and that feud I remember so much, holding it in high esteem. But to say that it's the best WrestleMania match before WrestleMania 17, I think Austin and Brett is number 1. Brett versus Owen. Brett was kind of on the low, Mr. WrestleMania with some of his classics that he had in that run. So I think it's in the top 10, maybe.
We've discussed this before about Brett and his either SummerSlam or WrestleMania antics. Terribly. I was about to say terribly underrated. He's like, we all know Brett's great, but I mean, I don't think he's as celebrated as some. That's probably the best way to put it. Also, Mod Mother Lady Lou reminds us today's co-host is SP3 from True Hill Heat, and you can find him on YouTube at this link. So please, guys, do check out his good stuff. I've been on the show a couple of times. One of my favorite shows to go on. We've got a couple of super chats here. By the way, that was Johnny Morocco. That was a great one. That's cool to open that up a bit. Like, I mean, because Flair Savage is great. You've got every right to make that claim. Matty says, and this Matty the Hot Scott says, Alex is asking Alex co-host, do your best in the world impression. Now, SP3, did you see Louis' awful impression last night?
Yes, right. I did.
I have every faith you won't do worse than that.
I don't know how I'm gonna do this because I'm probably gonna get yelled at by my wife for waking up my twins who are probably taking a nap right now. But I'll try my best.
All right, hang on. You do it. I need to get my charger. Go for it.
All right. The best in the world, Shane McMahon. Just for you, Maddie. You pay good money. You put impressions in super chats. I will do them. If you check out True Hill Heat YouTube channel, I just dropped a video today where I did a great Goldust impersonation. That the promo started off. Yes, and the promo started off like this. He's talking to Vince McMahon, and he's like, "Mr. Television Announcer Man, is that a microphone in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" Yes, I do good impressions. So
I've got to say, I felt like your beginning of that was really good, and then when you got to Shane, you punched Shane too much. You went Shane, like it should have been, I'm being hypocritical. That's what I do. All right.
Hey,
so Bo Hill is back with another hot take. We love Bo on this show. Hot take, the women's revolution in WWE was started by one person, AJ Lee. Now, Bo, I'm going to tell you why you're right and you're wrong. It's not by one woman. You can't say that. There are many women that contributed in many different ways to kickstart the women's revolution and build it to the point where it could be then taken to the next level. Was AJ Lee the spark that actually made it happen? You could argue that, yes. You could say that her starting the hashtag and indeed her great work. Like, to me, she's one of the best bridge of the generation, from like divas to where we are now. AJ Lee is the perfect bridge because she was just a bit of everything. She was amazingly talented for my money. Makes me gutted that her career wasn't longer than it was. But I don't think you can say one woman. SP3?
I think AJ Lee was the best character, female character to come in WWE since the era of Mickey, Trish, and Lita. Like, her character just had fans gravitate to it. They put her in a very prominent position with her storyline with Daniel Bryan, Kane, and CM Punk becoming the general manager. The heel turn on John Cena. She was just one of probably the most interesting character, male or female, at a certain time, like 2012, 2013. So I definitely understand the argument, but it was a whole big thing. I think that, like Alex said, she was the spark. But in my opinion, the Emma and Paige feud from NXT, that made me start following NXT. That feud and the feud between Sami Zayn and Cesaro was when I was like, oh, I should pay attention to what's going on in NXT, because that's all I heard. And the matches that they had really elevated the women's division in NXT. And then that crossed over to the main roster with Paige coming through, and then the 4 Horsewomen kind of elevating it to another level. I think that all these women altogether deserve a lot more credit than they do get. I feel like the 4 Horsewomen get a lot of credit, but there was a couple of ladies before them that don't get enough.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well, SP3. Look, listen, there's a conveyor belt of women that have done amazing things in WWE, and like every one of them are honestly, like we were talking about the Bellas earlier. sometimes people don't get the credit that they're due. And we look at the amazing, amazing talent that we have now, and it is amazing, right? Like there was a time where I couldn't have thought that women's wrestling was going to be at this level, honestly. Like, maybe even 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And now to see where we are is phenomenal. But I honestly think that everybody has kind of, laid a brick in the foundations, as it were. So Benny Boy says, surely SB3 has to do Timmel now. Benny Boy, are you trying to get him in trouble with his missus?
They really do. I have 8-month-old twins, everyone. Like, you want me to scream at the top of the lungs? I'm lucky I haven't got a text yet. Like, why were you just screaming? The rated R superstar. That's all I got.
The way that tailed off, star. Yeah, I hear you, man. Listen, we've got some other super chats. I mean, to be fair, that's a fine chimmel to get on the cuff, I think. Arif, again, another returner. How are you, brother? As trash as the 24/7 title is, it saves people's jobs. Kind of right. I mean, it keeps some people busy that wouldn't be busy otherwise. So I do think it's kind of lost a little bit of its original luster, but there's only so much they can do within an arena. So I'm not gonna hold them too accountable for that. I don't think SB3, because I thought when they were doing stuff on the golf courses and then airplanes, it was relatively fun.
That was so much fun, and it made you interested in social media for WWE, which is something that sometimes I don't pay attention to enough. But the stuff that they did with R-Truth, Drake Maverick, Jinder Mahal, that was kind of the apex of the 24/7 title for me. The Truth Drake Maverick feud is just so much comedy in there, and some of the best moments from last year.
I'm just going to read this one out. The Sports Illustrated article on Brett in the screw job was just disgraceful, from Elliot Fletcher. My advice to anyone is to not read it, because it is absolute trash. I literally read the first 3 paragraphs, and I was like, I wanted to click off because it was that bad. The opening paragraph especially is horrendous. What else have we got going down here? We've got another super chat as well. And it comes in from Matthew McCoskey. And he says, hello, friends. Hi, Maddie. I have crazy not takes. Okay, that's interesting wording. And things to share, but I want Stephanie to see them also. But I don't want to spend a bunch of money. Well, conserve your money, brother. You've already spent $5 there. That's fine. Steph's on here tomorrow. I appreciate you, though.
It's cool.
Letting us know you're in the wings. SB3's not worth your money. I get it. I get it. I wouldn't want to take it any other way, Matt. It's fine. It is fine, my friend. Listen, one thing I did say yesterday was that SB3 and I were going to have a mild debate. It seems that everyone enjoyed last week when we got into it over Drew and Kenny. So this week's version is something that SB3 picked up on when we were talking about it on another show. And that is really the debate between who is more influential on the landscape of wrestling. Is it the Elite, or is it been the Shield? SB3 is going to make a case for the Elite.
Yes, because I did my research, and influential means influence on someone or something. So this is clearly the Elite by a landslide. I'm just saying.
No.
Like, come on. First of all, let's just go back to the All In event. Like Dave Meltzer said it. A whole bunch of people said that if you're not in the WWE, you're not going to sell out a 10,000 seat arena. The power of the Elite, the power of Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks sold out a 10,000 seat arena. I was there live, over 11,000 in attendance. And from there, it sparked All Elite Wrestling. All Elite Wrestling creating its own promotion, the first big time alternative to WWE in North America. There's been places like New Japan, which the Elite had an impact and were influential there.
And just to interject, New Japan has done really well to grow in the past 3 or 4 years globally. But please continue.
There's been Ring of Honor, which I was been a Ring of Honor fan when it was a very small independent, and it's grown since then. It's not as grown as New Japan or AEW, but they had growth there. and a lot of that was also due to the Elite. But All Elite Wrestling has had an impact and influence on professional wrestling as a whole. It's made Wednesday nights the most popular and critically acclaimed night in professional wrestling. It's created jobs for so many different professional wrestlers and allowed them to have an income in this business. And it's actually influenced the WWE and how much they pay their performers, because they don't want them to go to AEW. It's had an influence across the board on professional wrestling.
That's one side of it. The TV deals are the bigger side of it, but
yeah, also true. The TV deals is also into it, but a lot of that was also due to AEW and the Elite by connection. Yes.
Hang on. We will circle back around to this. You think Fox pay WWE what they do because of All Elite?
No, I'm strictly talking about the contracts with the performers.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood what you said then. I thought you meant, okay, my bad.
No. I know Fox gave them, before All Elite Wrestling was an idea, a pie in the sky. Fox was giving WWE their money. I understand all of that. But the Elite across the board has influenced professional wrestling, whereas the Shield have had an influence on WWE, but I don't see their impact across professional wrestling. You could make the point that Jon Moxley has become a star outside of the WWE umbrella, and that's one point to make. But I can't say that they have been more influential than what the Elite has accomplished. It also goes to T-shirt sales, to the business, how that equates to you being a draw, your T-shirt sales. A lot of that is due to the Elite with the Young Bucks, what they did with PWTs, what Kenny Omega has done with, and then their impact with the Bullet Club overall as well. So it's a whole big thing. I think that it's Elite by a landslide, but I know Alex is the best person to argue against this.
This is another one of them points where it's like, I'm not that passionate about it because I love the Elite. Do you know what I mean? Like, Again, I don't feel like I can lose because I love that the Elite have brought us, what we have today, AEW. And so I went to the first show that AEW had. I know you went to All In, but the official Double or Nothing. And it was one of the funnest times I've had as a wrestling fan. Like, especially when WWE for years at that might have been unfair what I was about to say, but they've been going through the motions, certainly as a TV show for a while. So it was just so refreshing to go to like a different brand like that had so much energy and obviously guys that I wanted to see succeed. Do you know what I mean? Like Cody Rhodes is someone I was like banging my head for when he was in WWE, saying, why is he not doing more? So I agree with everything you say. And I also agree with Uptown Avondale, which actually is a credit to your point. I do believe it credited. I do believe that's twofold. That I think that pushed them to do it, like that made them look at it more seriously. But at the same time, I think USA were exploring the possibility as well. But to go on this is a whole different alley that I'm going down here, because I know Triple H would like beat me up for even thinking this. But like, because NXT have always been on Wednesday night, so I get when he says that. But like to put them in the same time slot and just, cable tech. Come on.
2 weeks before they premiered.
I think that you can't really deny that it had something to do with it. Yeah, but please don't hurt me, Triple H. Anyway, so for me, the argument I would make for the Shield is when everything that you just said about the Elite is true. I'm not going to degrade any of their accomplishments or anything, but you have to remember it's all relative by comparison to what WWE actually is to the industry. And you made the point yourself about Moxley. They've made Jericho their first champion, who, okay, not in the Shield, but he came from WWE. So the name power, there's a reason they didn't make one of the Elite the champion. And I'm not saying that for any other reason. They went with Jericho for the brand. They went with Moxley straight after that because that is the next best and the hottest star they've got. And why is he the biggest star they've got? Because of what he did in WWE with the Shield. No other reason. And I mean that with all respect to anything Moxley's ever done, but that is the reason, because he's come from the Shield. So the fact that the Elite have to lead their show with a man who actually comes from the Shield should tell you all you need to know about how much the Shield has made an impression in the business. The Shield has, maybe a dozen world titles between them, headlined the last decade of WrestleManias. I mean, they debuted in 2012, but you know what I mean? In the last decade, they've played a central role, particularly Roman, to whether we liked it or not at that point. In terms of WrestleManias, yeah, I've always liked Roman, but it's a disclaimer. And I feel like when you actually shape the business, whether people like to admit this or not, everything trickles down from WWE. Everything does. Where and that, I mean that not in terms of quality necessarily. You can make the argument that New Japan, from an artistic standpoint, are that you could make that argument that it's the leader in the world in terms of the actual wrestling or the work that's going on there. I do think. I'm seeing arguments in the comments now that Elite didn't make themselves champions for other. They could have made themselves champions by now. Is the point? The reason that they've built their cornerstones and they've given long reigns to guys like Moxley for that exact reason. It's not like even if they had no say in it, right? You still would have led with your strongest foot, and Jericho probably would have been your first. I think most of us thought that when Jericho was the first one. Fair enough. So for me, I feel like because everything trickles down from WWE, the Shield have kind of shaped what the top of that looks like. And then even as you see Moxley turning up into and leading AEW and a lot of WWE talent that, of course, is now in AEW too, you can see how influential they are on the business almost by proxy because of where they are. But that's not to take away from, because let's be honest, all of Rollins, Moxley and Reigns are ultra talented. So again, I think this is a case of the way we phrased the debate. Because you could argue that the Elite have accomplished more in wrestling. Because I think what they've done is it's massive. Like you just said, to become the second point of the wrestling business in not just North America, probably the world at this point. AEW, you could argue, is the number 2 promotion. And I think for WWE, where they are and what the Shield has made them over the past 10 years, that has factored a lot of what we've got and where we are now. And when I say WWE people in AEW, I guess a lot of what I'm trying to say is that the Shield though has been what has kept the WWE up. So for me, I think when you start most influential, just by the virtue of how many eyes and the influence it has on the business because of how big the platform is, you could argue that it is the Shield, and they've done it for a longevity of time that gives them that credit. But to me, the Elite have accomplished more because for what they have done in the business, no one else was able to do for an extended period of time. I realise that I've rambled there and not actually articulated what I wanted to say very much because there's a lot of thoughts in my head. But that's what I'm going to circle at, that I think one of them has accomplished more, but one of them is more influential by virtue that their platform is bigger and they have made the most of that using their talents.
Yeah, I actually would say it's reversed. I say the Shield have accomplished more because they are in the biggest promotion in professional wrestling. Main eventing WrestleMania is probably bigger than any of the accomplishments. Main eventing the Tokyo Dome in New Japan, that's bigger to main event WrestleMania because it's the biggest wrestling show of the year every single year. And being the WWE champion is considered the apex of anybody's professional wrestling career. Even for somebody like AJ Styles, who has won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, just like Kenny Omega, he says the biggest accomplishment of his career is winning the WWE Championship. So I say the Shield has accomplished more, but when it comes to being influential, being impactful on the entire professional wrestling business, it's the Elite.
This is again where we're at though, because we say the entire wrestling business below WWE, right? All of the wrestling promotions combined in terms of the platform and the viewers, maybe on a TV basis, but you know what I'm trying to say here, buy rates and things of that nature. The distance is actually very, very far. I know that we can see AEW touching 1 million on a Wednesday, but WWE weekly, when you put their shows together, is what, 5 or 6 million? So, there's a lot to factor in there. And in terms of where they touch around the globe, the TV deals, where they've got them. So I think it's when again, they could have made themselves their champions, right, in their own promotion. But I still think you can't tell me that when that promotion started, the biggest names in there weren't Moxley. You put them right next to them.
No, yeah.
He still was, again, for the reasons that I just discussed. So I think it's an interesting one. I actually do, in terms of what we just said, in how you perceive their roles. Because I think the Elite and partnering up with Tony Khan, of course, let's give Tony Khan his due, because without him, they can't do what they have done. to a degree in making a show, is what I'm saying. But even still, before then, in different promotions, they touched it. I guess I just think the Shield have set the bar where in the highest promotion, and thus for that has kind of trickled down. So I mean, I'm happy to say that. What are we going to say? That the Elite have achieved more.
Yeah, whichever way you go, I go with the Shield has accomplished more. Because don't get me wrong, I'm a big Shield fan. That was the greatest thing that's happened to WWE in the past decade. I've been a Seth Rollins fan since before in his time in Ring of Honor. I've been a fan of Jon Moxley from his time in CZW, and since Roman has come into the WWE, he's been one of my favorite guys. Period. Even the times when people hated his guts, I remember being in Florida the night after he defeated The Undertaker. Everybody saying delete. I was saying select. I select Roman Reigns. Not delete Roman Reigns. I select Roman Reigns. And he cut one of the best 5-word promos that I've ever seen in my life.
I was there.
I was there as well, man. I loved every minute of it. And I loved the fact that Roman was such a lightning rod. I think that he elevated that lightning rod type of reaction that John Cena got. And it was just another level of negativity when it comes to that. I think that it was much more balanced with John Cena in comparison to how it was with Roman Reigns. And I just enjoyed that type of reaction to somebody. And I love what the Shield has accomplished in WWE, but the fact that the Elite have impacted WWE and the way they now talk to their talent and now are signing talent to different deals to avoid them even talking to AEW. Randy Orton teasing that he was looking at the Elite sign so he could get a bigger deal in WWE. It's impacted some of the biggest stars in WWE, so that's why I think the Elite are more influential.
But again, with your point, I feel like Tony Khan plays a bigger role than maybe the Elite, because you're talking money now. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think that's strictly where we are in the debate. But I'm very, I'm as I said, I love the Elite and I love what they've done for the business. So I'm happy to concede that they've done tremendous things in the business and have had a hell of an influence. I just think that you can't make out that WWE haven't influenced them too, because they influence everything around the world that we see, and whether we like to admit it or not, they do, in terms of what trickles out, where the stars go, what you see in WWE, what ends up popping elsewhere. But I just think the Elite, as someone actually said in the comments, they said it perfectly, from a YouTube show essentially to where they are now is pretty amazing. So hats off to them. Hats off to both of them, really. As I said, can't be any real losers there. But I will shade it with the Elite just because I feel it's almost more impressive. Again, I'm not sure where I want to say influence or achieve more. That's where I'm a bit divided on who's who. But I do think what the Elite has managed to do from, even if you take Tony Khan out of the equation, I do think they've managed to do tremendous things.
Absolutely. I think you can't go wrong either way. I know the comment section is probably split right now with Shield and the Elite. So either way you go, you can't go wrong. And please bring in more super chats, because we got this whole debate from you guys in your super chats with asking that question. So bring them on. I love the super chats.
Yeah, the super chats are the best, man. We actually have a hot take in the chamber, SP3, that we should probably get to. And that does remind me, guys, please do get your hot takes into myself or Louis that we will play up here on the videos and we will debate at length. And of course, there is only 10 or so minutes until Quizzlemania. So please, guys, remember, if you need to drink, you need to go to the toilet, or you need to watch us two talk about wrestling, get your stuff in. Be the good eggs you were born to be. Now let's get to this hot take from Shaya.
Hey, Alex and Louis. My hot take is that Impact Women's Division is better than NXT Women's Division, because you see Deanna Prazo, Tenille Dashwood, Jordan Grace, Tasha Steelz, all these great women are not getting the time because they're on Access TV rather on the USA Network on TNT. So that's my hot take.
Shaya coming in with the hot take. I think we've said it before. In fact, I think I said it yesterday even. Impact's Women's Division is very, very good. And I do think one testament of that is that Deonna Purrazzo has come from not being able to get on NXT TV to showing exactly how good she is with Impact, and working with some great talent in that division, like we've seen Jordan Grace and Su Yung now being the champion. I think a lot of people have slept on Impact, full stop, but their women's division is amazing. Am I prepared to say it's better than NXT's? Now, NXT is always difficult to judge things like this because it's like a revolving door, right? So like 6 months ago, you'd been saying something a lot different because you had, like, I don't know, the Bianca Belairs of this world and whatever. Right now, though, Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel
Storm.
Yeah, Tony Storm, Ember Moon. Like, you can't tell me that none of them would go to Impact and like absolutely run that division. And I'm not saying that there's no one in Impact who could come and make a massive impact in NXT, but I can't. I'll have to go with NXT.
Yeah, I think they're a close second. I think they're a very close second, and they don't get enough credit. I've been loving the Knockouts tag team division kind of shaping, and the tournament's going to start next week. I was a big proponent of it a couple of months ago. I was like, man, they're pairing up all these women. Like, give us the Knockouts tag team title. So I was very happy that they announced that at Bound for Glory. Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan are very underrated. They make a great team. The whole dynamic between Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie is awesome. You got Havoc. I've actually had an interview with Havoc. She's so nice for the monster heel that she plays on television. She's a nice person outside of it. I don't want to hurt her character.
That's often the case, by the way.
Exactly.
The amount of bad people I've met in wrestling who actually are super nice in person. Like Rhea Ripley, not long after Tegan Knox, who is another amazing talent, by the way, currently on the sidelines. And she was like playing the super heel, but in person, I was like blown away by how nice she was. But anyway.
No, but they have a lot of depth. I mean, it is gonna hurt that Kylie Ray is no longer with them, but they have so much talent over there. Outside of Deonna Purrazzo, Kimberly was another person that was signed by NXT, and she's accomplished so much, pairing up with Deonna Purrazzo, and just recently signed with Impact Wrestling. So I do agree that Impact is in the running. It's in the top 2 of the best women's divisions in all of professional wrestling. Well, at least North America, because we don't count Stardom. Stardom is a whole nother beast within itself.
Yuka Sakazaki is the best thing. Yeah, go on.
But I agree with Alex. Io Shirai, in my opinion, is the best women's wrestler in the world, and she's the champion of NXT. And then they're deaf, like Dakota Kai, all these different women. And then the women that are on the come up, like Raquel Gonzalez, she showed so much in that match against Rhea Ripley on Halloween Havoc that she has potential. And now she's being talked about. The rumor mill is talking about her getting a big push when she goes to the main roster. So they have so much talent, so much depth, and so many ladies that are not even on television yet in NXT. So NXT has it by a country mile, even more than Raw and SmackDown. And then, they blow AEW's women's division out the water. Don't get me started on that. But but NXT is number 1 and Impact is number 2.
I think so, too. Mercedes Martinez looks like she's heading back to NXT after turning down, smartly, a Retribution spot. Mia Yim only just left there. Who is the Casey Catanzaro as well, is someone who's got an amazing amount of talent. I feel like, NXT, you talk about deep, like they are deep with talent there. But yeah, Impact, I think they're right there. Like, it's not like NXT blowing everyone out of the water. I honestly do think that it's kind of like just in NXT's favor, though.
And speaking of Impact, will we see the Rascals tonight on AEW? Maybe that's one of the surprises, because if you watch Impact Wrestling last night, the big news coming out of it is the Rascals are leaving Impact Wrestling. They've been evicted from their treehouse. Poor treehouse. The good times they had there, and they've been evicted. So maybe that's one of the surprises. I don't see that shifting the balance of power, but I think that would be a cool surprise on AEW.
Now, Bo Hill chimes in to talk to me about my statement during our debate. Not 5 or 6 million viewers for WWE. You have to count repeat viewers for shows. Guesstimate max of 4 million over 3 shows. Bo, you are technically probably correct, but the reason I say 5 or 6 million total is because that is what advertisers would count it as, right? Yeah. It depends who tunes into the show. So SmackDown does just north of 2 million. Raw does just south of 2 million. And NXT does what? On a usual week, we're going to say 650, 700K maybe.
Yeah.
So give or take, it's probably 5 million-ish, I would say. And that's what advertisers would look at. And, we're not going to get into demos and how all that works for those of you that are bored stiff by that anyway. But repeat viewers would count is my point. So a total in a week. That's how I came to that conclusion, my friend. As we move towards the stretch here, what are you looking forward to this week, SP3? What storylines moving along have really got your attention?
Well, with AEW, I want to see how they follow up from that great tag team matchup with the Young Bucks and FTR. Are we going to get another match? Who are going to be the new contenders for the Young Bucks? Because I feel like they're going to have plenty of great matches to defend the tag team titles with that deep tag team division in AEW. I really want to see what they're going to do to follow up Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston had some fire promos leading up to Full Gear, and on BTE he had a great promo which kind of turned him babyface in my eyes. So are we going to see that translate to television on AEW? Because they have a hot commodity in Eddie Kingston, and I want to see if they can follow up with that. Over on NXT, I'm ready to see what type of goober Johnny Gargano pulls out of the barrel to successfully defend his title for the very first time. Because I love that that's never been talked about. They always talk about Sasha only defending, never being able to defend her titles, but they never talked about it with Johnny, and that finally has become a storyline. And he's one of the funniest characters. I know we talked about it in our early episodes, how we weren't too sure with him as a heel, but he's really developed his comedic timing as a heel, and I'm ready to see what he does tonight.
Yes, I agree. Johnny Gargano. The Gargano way for me was a bit like awkward at the start. I think they were finding their feet a little bit, but it has grown on me. And yeah, in terms of the Wednesday nights, I'll be very open. My two favorite shows right now by a distance are SmackDown and AEW. That's my two favorite shows of the week. And this is someone who, I don't know, a year, 18 months ago, I would have said NXT was easily my favorite show of all. So I just feel that NXT will always have these ebbs and flows because, like I said, it's like a revolving door. Some people would go up, go down. They've had a lot of injuries this year as well. So it's a tough one for them. But I do feel like it's only like a matter of time before NXT always becomes good because that's just kind of the way it works. You have to think about they have eras of talent like every year. There's like a different turnover. So that's what makes them different to every single promotion out there, in my opinion. But I'm very interested to see, like I said earlier, Hangman Page, Omega, where they're going with that. Because being the elite stuff with Page was very interesting. Him meandering the corridors and just being like, oh, and then like the Dark Order stuff. So, I do think they're heading in the right direction, man. And I don't think it gets said enough because I think it's become popular in years to just be like, WWE, bleh. But SmackDown is on a roll at the moment. Raw is not. Raw feels like a long show. Do you know what I mean? Like the 3 hours really feel like 3 hours, even though there's little bits within that I like Drew or whatever. I don't know. For me, it's always a difficult one with them. But SmackDown firing. You got Sasha and Bayley, top of their games. Roman and Jay, who I will say The Undertaker said is his favorite story in wrestling right now. So
big praise.
That is, and I will be bringing you more from the dead man in a couple of weeks. On the 20th, I will drop that, and of course, it will be on my radio show on TalkSport 2. We're not going to outstay our welcome now, though, SP3, because Quizzlemania, the 6 hack challenge, is rapidly approaching. Who's going to win, SP3?
Queen of the Ring for the W.
I'm going to pray for Tempest coming out of his closet, proverbially, that he's going to win that. The kid deserves it. He doesn't want to go back to being the fact checker. He wants the limelight, damn it. So once again, thank you so much, guys, for joining us in this episode, this Wednesday with SP3. That he'll be here every single Wednesday, killing my ass in debates, apparently. And you can catch his YouTube channel as well, man, which really does have a great array of talent. Great characters on that show. Chrissy G, Chrissy Love, all of the good characters, man. So please make sure you step by with him. And on that note, you can catch up with us on podcasts. And thanks again for your super chats. Glad we got through them all. Join us again tomorrow. I'll be back with the hot take queen herself, Stephanie Chase.